In today's video, we're going to talk about Aztec warfare. What did it look like and what happened? Let's discuss. The battle began usually with both sides coming to an agreement of where and how and when they would fight. Usually it would be in an open field or meadow in an equal distance between both kingdoms. I know, this was all very planned out. And if you're wondering about sneak attacks or traps or assassins, they didn't do that. They had too much honor to do that. Once both armies were lined up, they would then start hurling not spears, but insults. They'd cuss, they'd be vulgar, they'd take out their privates and shake it out their opponents, really get everyone riled up and excited. At the camps, priests would be getting everything ready for the sacrifices, and it would also be this time that young warriors would get their incentive. There was an elite group of female warriors who would go onto the battlefield with young new warriors. They would fight alongside them, and if that young new warrior did a really good job, the female warrior would take him back and reward him. And if there was a noble or a king there, they would be in the front lines. Once everyone was riled up and ready, they would then start hurling spears at the opposing side. Now, hurling spears might sound deadly, especially when everyone is lined up side by side, but actually not a lot of people died. In fact, shields and armor protected most people. If anyone got hit with a spear, they were probably some nobody soldier who didn't have any armor. However, there were an elite group of spear throwers who used the at, which is a little wooden kind of leverage device you put at the end of the spear and you use that to throw the spear. The at increases the deadliness of a spear by like 300%. Using that little piece of wood would increase the distance and the damage and the velocity of that spear more than double. Now, they did have bows and arrows at this time, they just didn't like using them. And once everyone had thrown their spears, they would then line up, grab their weapons, and start charging. The average weapon you'd see is the spear, the makwawit, or a pole-arm version of the makwawit, and almost everyone carried a shield. Now, when everyone starts charging, that's when we see people breaking up into different units. Now, on the front line would be three groups of people. The first would be the nobles and the kings, people who were trained to fight. However, they might not have been the best, but that was okay, because next to them were the shock troopers, the sworn ones. They had giant mohawks and were yellow, and they were absolutely devastating in a fight. And next to them would be the third and final unit, the ranged units, who ran up to get even closer to be even more deadly, and they used the atlat, and they used sling and rocks. And if you're thinking, a sling and a rock, no, those were instant kills. Those were guaranteed. Whoever that rock hit, they were dead. The proficiency to which the Aztec had with a sling and a rock was notorious. Even the Spaniards, who had metal helmets, recorded people getting hit in the head with a rock and dying. Now, behind the front line were the Jaguar Warriors and the Eagle Warriors, and they both had their specific jobs. The Eagle Warriors were the leaders. They were also really skilled at ranged combat and melee combat. The Eagle Warriors were there to follow up on the ranged units in the front line, take their place, then continue into melee combat. The Jaguar Warriors did not do ranged combat. They had heavy armor and makwawits, and they ran in there for blood. Behind the Jaguar and Eagle Warriors was the rest of the army, then behind them was the people that continued to shoot from range. Now, the goal of the Aztec warrior was to not just obliterate and kill everyone. In fact, they believed that killing someone on the battlefield meant you weren't a very good warrior. Defeat your opponent, break them down, and bring them back to your side of the camp to be sacrificed. And just like a video game, there was actually a point system. See, in Aztec society, you couldn't party, you couldn't sleep with someone, you couldn't even drink unless you earned a certain amount of points. The more points unlocked more things. Earning the right to marry and sleep with one person was 1 point. Easy enough, you bring one person back, you're good for life. Drinking required 5 points. That means you had to bring 5 people back to be sacrificed. 10 points, well, then you had the ability to, your marriage was open to other options. At 20 points, that means 20 individually people that you defeated in combat, you were allowed to be a full-time warrior. That was allowed to be your job and you get paid for it. And if you were really skilled, you could actually earn enough points to become a noble. So regardless of your birthright, if you were that good in combat, they'd say, don't worry about your birthright, you're a noble now. And if you're thinking, video game rules, does that mean bosses and big enemies are worth more points? Yes, they were. If you were somehow able to defeat and capture a titled unit, a Jaguar Warrior, an Eagle Warrior, or a noble or a king, you got a lot more points than just one. However, grunt soldiers, those were people who didn't even bother wearing armor. They were usually farmers, and they were there to just fight and be a person, those usually didn't get you any points past that first point. Now, most grunts would fight other grunts, they would take each other out, capture each other, it all worked out. But to a jaguar warrior and an eagle warrior, a grunt meant nothing. They weren't worth anything, so their life, they just sliced right through you. Fights would continue until either it got too dark to fight, one side was like, hey, we've taken a lot of casualties, we give up, or they agreed upon a set time and say, we're gonna fight for this exact amount of time, at that time, it's done. Once the battle was over, both sides would then meet up and talk about bartering. They would talk about how many people each other captured, and they say, hey, you captured 50 of my guys, I captured 40 of your guys. All right, let's trade some back. You can keep that guy. No, give me that guy back. He's really important. Yada, yada, yada. They would then trade money or gold or territories for certain people, and then that would be it. The next day, however, there would be arena combat. Anyone captured would get one final opportunity to earn their freedom. If they could survive one day in the arena, they would get their freedom. Otherwise, they're getting sacrificed. If you're thinking, well, that's fair, it really wasn't. For starters, the arena was seen as a sacrificial chamber, so if you died there, that counted as a sacrifice. Captured soldiers were also given makwa wheats without blades, and if you're thinking, not just a stick, it was just a stick. They were also tied to a giant stone tablet, meaning they couldn't go far. And the people they had to fight, no, it wasn't each other. It was usually the warriors they had just lost to. And those warriors had shields and armor and makwa wheats and spears with actual blades. And while unfair as that might all seem, there were instances where warriors did earn their freedom. And there were instances where captured warriors would be like, look, I'm not making it out of another battle. Let me sell myself into slavery. I'll work a certain amount of days, weeks, years, whatever. I get paid that whole time, and then I get to leave back to my kingdom. That did happen, and quite often. But for the warriors who fought and lost on the battlefield, then fought and lost again in the arena, your fate was sealed. You were taken up to the temple, you were split from neck to navel with an obsidian dagger, your heart was pulled out of your chest, and it was done so quick and efficiently, you could actually see your beating heart out of your own chest before you dropped dead. Plus side, because you died a warrior's death, you got to go straight to the best heaven. So, silver lining. Hope you enjoyed the video, everyone. Have a magical day.